So welcome to today's episode, where I'll be talking to Claire Heritage about how it took almost 2 years for her to make the decision to become a self-employed estate agent. In this episode, she talks about the difficulties and concerns she had, but also what life is like now. So welcome, Claire.
Hi, Sean.
Thank you for joining us today.
No, thank you.
So I'd like to start just by understanding your journey. So how did you start an estate agency?
Well, that's a good question. Try not to bore you too much, but I always knew from a very early age, rightly or wrongly, that I wanted to be an estate agent. How it started was actually I did GMVQ business at school. So when I was in year 10, I actually did work experience at a local estate agent's.
Okay.
So I did that for 2 weeks. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
It was actually going back 16 years now, give or take. So yeah, very interesting, but I absolutely loved it. I ended up doing case studies on that particular business. And then subsequently, once I left school, I knew that was the line that I wanted to go down. So started NVQs in estate agency, got in it there, did lots of training, got through that. And then I moved over to rugby and started with a local independent over here. I was there for just less than a year really before I thought, no, I need to take the bull by the horns as such. And then I went to work for a corporate. So I went to work for Countrywide. I know many people have worked for Countrywide, and it's a good basis, to be honest. Training's really good. And that was how I started there. I was sales negotiator, then I started with the listing front. But then unfortunately, 2007, they were making redundancies. So I took a plunge really to do something completely different, always been interested in marketing. So I went and I was a sales representative for the local newspaper. Yeah. I did that for 9 years, property advertising. So not stepping too far away, still talking, made lots of friends as estate agents as well, which was great. Yeah. And that was really my role into it. And then had children, had the family life, and then decided that I wanted a bit more again. So started with Fine and Country. Again, marketing with local newspapers was changing quite a lot. Everything was changing to digital media. So I thought, no, I've got to take the plunge again and do something out of my comfort zone. And I was employed for Fine and Country as an administrator initially.
Yeah. And what did that role entail?
Assisting the branch and everybody, all the staff members at the branch. So listing of the properties, doing all the administration behind it, preparing property details, dealing with our studio department, behind the scenes legal paperwork, making sure that all the files were kept up to date before we had everything on a server. Everything was in a paper file. So that was really my role, to make sure that everybody knew where they were supposed to be at any given time, I suppose.
So I would say probably the backbone of any office, the things that you do probably don't get all the credit. Sometimes it's the lister getting the credit for getting the listings, or the salesperson getting the credit but there's a lot of that goes on in the background behind the scenes. So
for me to do my role is enabling someone else to do theirs. So without everybody working together, I suppose, and you wouldn't have that well-oiled machine that it was. But very important. Behind the scenes team are usually very good, very important.
And so when you were doing that role, did you think, I want to become an estate agent again and list houses and sell houses? Is that something you got in the back of your mind?
I did. Initially, that really wasn't on my mind. I thought, I'm happy being behind the scenes. I had a young family as well, so time was really important with regards to that. So at the time when I started, to be honest, no, it really didn't cross my mind. But the more I got back into the job, the more that I saw the possibilities, and my role changed quite a bit actually over the course of the next few years, I suppose, with what I was actually involved with. And the possibilities are endless when you're moving and looking at what can be done. So that was when I thought, yes, I want to get back into sales and doing it.
Okay. So obviously a lot of the agents are self-employed agents, and that's something that obviously you looked at. But I think it was something you'd probably considered for a while. It wasn't something you just sort of, I'm going to do it and jumped in and made a quick decision. That was probably something you were considering for maybe a couple of years. So I'd be interested to know what your thoughts were really, what your thought process was, and did you have concerns What were your things? What were you thinking about the whole model?
It took me a very long time, and you're not off at all with a couple of years. It must have been at least a couple of years. Like to think usually I'm a very safe and I like security behind me, I suppose. Never had the guts to make any big plunges, but actually, yes, there was a lot of thought process. For me, I was absolutely terrified. I had commitments, mortgages, family to feed, children, and actually the thought of not having the backup of a regular income, it scared the life out of me. So yeah, I did sit on the fence for quite a while with regards to that. I think it's a massive decision for anybody to actually make that move to say, yes, I'm going to be my own boss. Your destiny's in your own hands at that point. So you make yourself accountable for everything that you do, and you justify everything to yourself. So it's scary, very daunting. Even now, I'm fairly new as to self-employment, and I still have those wobbly moments, I suppose. But actually the benefits for that are outweighed, if I'm honest. So
going back to the decision process, you mentioned two very valid reasons. One, obviously that, that you've got the security of a regular wage, going self-employed. There's no guarantees. You literally, eat what you kill, so it is quite daunting. So what changed your mind then? At what point did you think, no, I want to make that decision?
It was a bit of a mixture. Obviously, we've had lockdown in the mix as well, but even before then, this has always been on the cards potentially. Taking the plunge, I always said that I'd like to know that I can safely do it. We all know we're not going to earn anything straight away, so you have to have a backup in place, I suppose. Then when we were locked down and I was originally furloughed for a couple of months, and then you have time to reflect, I suppose, as to what you really want to do. And did a lot of reading, did a lot of online courses and behind the scenes. And then you think, no, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to take that plunge. We didn't know, and no one knew where the property market was going to go coming out of lockdown. So again, you assess it I gave it another few weeks. But then it's like, no, you've got to just say, I'm doing it, because if you sit on it for too long, you'll never, ever do it. So the decision really was when I came back from furlough. I was working at home, doing admin, being behind the scenes. It was a nightmare, to be honest. We've all been in that situation where we've got young children at home constantly demanding. They can't go to school. You can't do their schoolwork. You're tied to the computer as well. Your whole working life is on that machine. And I sat there and I just thought, no, I need something more. I need to test my brain a bit more as well. And I need to be able to have a look at really a lifestyle change for myself and the children, more so than anything. So that to me was the biggest decision, was deciding, no, I want to be my own boss, being in charge of my own diary and making my own decisions for myself. And then I've only got myself to blame if anything didn't go right. It's up to me.
And so were there any other, what's the word I'm looking for, things that were stopping you in your head? I mean, obviously we talked about fear. That's a real feeling for a lot of people, that fear of the unknown, the fear, am I good enough? Can I do this? What if I fail? Not just the financial implications, but, almost like the public embarrassment of, they failed. I mean, how did you have those fears, and how did you deal with it?
It's a lot about confidence as well. And I think, again, I suppose, knowing that I've done the job previously, knowing what I learnt when I was working in my original role and how that's adapted and how things changed, I thought, actually, no, I've done that. I've made that change. So when you've got that social proof, actually, that you can say, well, look how far I've come in the last 6 years. Let's see where the next 6 years is going to take me, really. So for me, it was about building the confidence back up, knowing that, yes, I can go out and do it by myself. You can shadow lots of people. You can listen and you can read and learn from lots that's available to you. But if you've got the self-confidence to go and do it, then that's really important. But I think we all worry about fear and rejection. It's like if we lose a listing to another agent, yes, you take that personally. I know I do, whether that's right or wrong. but it's going to happen, and you have to pick yourself up from that and move on.
I think
lots
in this industry, you have to be able to deal with rejection. You know, it's going to be part of them, and disappointments because, you know, things don't always go to plan. But before we go into that, so you made the decision. It's still early days. So how long have you been now, you know, actively self-employed estate agent?
5 months.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm 5 months in.
Okay. So it's still early days.
Very early.
Tell us what's changed and how you feel about it at the moment.
If you'd asked me 5 months ago, I wouldn't think that I'd be sitting in this situation. It takes a lot of hard work to get yourself up and running. You can't deny that. But it's been so rewarding. The feedback that I've had from people who I have dealt with over the past few months, when you're left a lovely, you know, sparkling review, you actually sit down and think, actually, I know I can do this. And that's proof of the pudding that you can do it. Don't get me wrong. It's difficult. You know, you're on call pretty much 24/7. The amount of times your mobile phone goes off. I'll be driving in the car and sometimes the children are in the back, especially my youngest son. And I'll say, Mummy, please don't answer the phone. Please, not again. It's ringing again. But at the same time, that's also good because, to be fair, they're involved in my journey as well, and it's important for them to know a good work ethic as well, which to me is really important. But it's very rewarding. In 5 months, I think I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. We all want more listings, or we all want more activity if we've had a quiet week. But overall, I'm so pleased that I made that decision to take that plunge. Good. I really am.
Well, that's great to hear. And first of all, I want to congratulate you for taking that decision, because it is a big step and takes a lot of bravery. But you know, you will be rewarded, or are being rewarded. But I don't want to make it sound too rosy and too glossy and it's all sunshine and rainbows. There are some downsides. If you experience some downsides, you know, I want people to hear the good and the bad. What's the bad side of it?
The problem, not the problem, but the main issue that you've got when you're self-employed, there's a lot more at stake. One, you're taking everything personally, which to me, having a glowing review or knowing that I've done a good job for somebody is the important goal. Maintaining that as well. We're in sales at the end of the day. Things go wrong. When you have a bit of a rocky week, we all have them. I had one last week. 3 sales potentially on the brink, literally right on the brink
of what, falling
through. And you think, wow, that's 3 sales that you've worked so hard to put together. Have I made the right decision? Have we chosen the right buyer? I don't want to let my clients down. When all of that's happening behind the scenes, you question yourself first of all, and that's quite hard sometimes to do. But actually, it makes you stronger when you're overcoming these objections. You're learning as you go as well, because we've had lots of problems that have arose over the last, you know, couple of weeks that actually is brilliant from my point of view, because actually if that happened again further down the line, and I've got the experience, luckily none of the sales have fallen through. So you pull yourself out of a bad week. But when you're in that situation where you think that everything's coming crashing down, I mean, 3 sales for a pipeline when you're self-employed, that's the difference between having a Christmas dinner in a few months' time to not. You know, we're always working further down the line to where we are now. So you do think, right, something's got to happen here. What do I need to do? It does test you. That's probably the biggest, and the fear for me is not being able to pay my mortgage at the end of the month, and being able to put food on the table. That to me is key. That's why we all go to work. I you know, take the enjoyment out of it as well, but that's the real reason that we all do this. And it's difficult.
And obviously that's a valid point there, but how obviously it's a concern. If you don't sell any houses, you don't earn any money and don't eat. But is that a motivator as well, a driver for you?
Absolutely. I want to do well personally as well. And I think, it's everyone's drive to want to do it. But because it's me, I know that I'm the only person who can change whatever's in front of you. And again, you come back to that confidence as well, is once you've got the confidence, and to be honest, once you've taken the plunge to go self-employed, you're halfway there. So to be honest, you think, actually, no, I got through this before, we can do it again. You know, you're building up from scratch. But it's all good. It's a learning curve. everything will work out okay in the end. It's just how you get to that point, really.
Yeah.
But yes, it is daunting. I do sit there sometimes with my head in my hands thinking, oh my goodness, it's been such a bad day. I've got, people ring you when you're self-employed and your mobile numbers are on the boards. They're everywhere across social media. You can't escape anyone. You're there constantly at the forefront of the minds of people, and your phone rings all the time, whether it's 9 o'clock on a Sunday evening or just as England are about to kick off for the World Cup final or something like that. You just think, okay, right, no, it's right now, but that's part of the job and that's what you take on. Yeah. And through it all, it's good.
So it can be very demanding, no doubt about it. It's not for everybody, and it's certainly not an easy street. What's the flip side? What are the benefits, and what have you found that you've really enjoyed, or what's worked well for you?
It's having that flexibility. Yeah. I think flexibility is a really good word. And again, you can look after yourself to a certain degree. You have that better work-life balance. You know where you've got to be. You know what commitments you've got, and you know what you need to fulfill, really. So for me, it's enabled me to have that extra bit of time at home where I do need to make sure that everything's working and everyone still gets to school on time, and homework is done, kind of. Yeah. But from that point of view, it's been really important for me, and to take that lifestyle amend. I
think for mothers with kids, and families and a household to look after, it's certainly there's definitely some benefits. You haven't got to be being in an office at a certain time, being told what to do. You have got a little bit of, you've got complete autonomy. You plan your diary and you can say, well, I'm not going to do any appointments tomorrow afternoon because I want to spend the afternoon with the kids. And you can turn your phone off and probably send it to voicemail, or even to a colleague, or we've got phone answering services. And also, maybe this is something you could do is, I do set boundaries with my sellers. I say, look, I'm available 7 days a week up until 8 o'clock in the evening. So it's setting a boundary. Your boundary might be 8:30, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, or you might say I'm available 24 hours a day. Or, if it's an emergency, you can say, look, just drop me a WhatsApp message, because a WhatsApp message, you don't mind dealing with that at a certain time. But yeah, I mean, maybe set some boundaries, but you are on call. But I guess the flip side is the clients like that and they want that.
I use it as a bit of a selling tool, really. Yeah. I like the fact, yes, okay, I'm in my very early stages. So, we all bend over backwards. The object when you're in sales, you like to have that finished end product, don't you? And you want someone to say, you've done a fantastic job, thank you. Yeah. The thank you at the end of it is what makes it all worthwhile. So you can handle having calls at all times. And I think when I'm going out there and I'm looking and talking to people and sitting in front of them on a market appraisal, actually, it's a really good tool to say, look, I do have a small, young family and small children. So apologies if ever I pick up the phone and you can hear somebody screaming in the background, or they haven't had their tea, or this is me. I'm trying to multitask with everything that I do, really. But actually, that allows you to have that rapport with people. And they've probably been in that situation too, where they've had to bring up a young family, so they understand. And actually, most of the time, if you're picking up the phone call at 7:30, 8 o'clock, even 10 o'clock of an evening, then actually they appreciate that. Yeah. And I suppose there do need to be some boundaries, but actually you get out of it what you put into it. And if at the end of the day, they can only talk to me of an evening, and once my children are in bed, well, actually, is it really any skin off my nose, I suppose, to be helping everybody?
I guess these clients, they've probably got work. They're at work during the day. They've got their kids to deal with, and maybe in the evening is the best time. And actually, if that means in an hour in the evening you're dealing with some of your clients, but you get your afternoons to pick the kids up or drop them off, it's interesting. So it's still early days. What do you think the future looks like? Is this something you think it might not work? I'll give it a go, or are you 100% all in and this is the future for you?
100% all in. I didn't go into this to question it in a few months or even a few years down the line. I know this is what I want to do. It's what I've wanted to do since I was very young. With regards to property and houses, I love it, actually. I like the way that it adapts. Every few months something new will come into place. There'll be something new to try. look at us when we were all running around trying to get photographs to the newspapers. So on my flip side of the job that I did before, when everyone's panicking to get their newspaper deadlines in, or thinking, oh my goodness, I haven't pressed a submit button, when we did eventually go online, and looking at it like that. And now literally you can click a button, everything's there, everything's in front of you. Social media, how's that changed in the last 3 years especially? It was just starting to change as I came into F&C, I suppose, 6 years ago. But actually look where we've taken that and the possibilities with it as well. And a video is worth, what do they say, is a video, well, a picture's worth more than 1,000 words. Well, what's a video? For the sake of doing video content, you're reaching a bigger audience, and it's a rapport building tool too.
Totally. Well, what I'd perhaps like to do in the next video is discuss sort of what you do and how you do it, and some of the tips and advice you can give to other estate agents. But before we go to that, I mean, I really just want to finish the story then. Okay. So we talked about where you started. We talked about that decision process and how you went through going from being an employee to effectively running your own business. And I guess the ups and downs of being a self-employed agent. There's going to be lots of other people out there that can relate to some of the comments you've made and the journey you've had, but are probably at that point now on the fence. What would be your advice to them, or what, is it right for everybody, and was it the right timing, or what have they got to consider to see if it's?
If you sit there and think about timing, like I did for over 2 years ago, there has to be a point where you draw a line underneath it. My biggest thing was having a bit of a safety net in the bank. It's not all about the money. However, when you're interested in taking that plunge and you want to, going into it without having any backup, I'd say that I would feel better if I had a little bit of a safety net. That was extremely important for me. So it's building that up, and that can be a slow process, and it can take you a little while. But if you do, there'll never be a right time. Okay. It's like when you decide to have children. Is any time the right time to do that? Yeah. You have to make a life decision, and as scary as it is, take it and run with it, and just be yourself. And if you be yourself and you're confident with what you can do, then hopefully you can grow it yourself, and people will like that.
And you can plan for it. I mean, you can plan and say, well, I'm not going to do it now, but I could do it in 6 months' time, or 12 months' time, or 2 years' time. And whether that's saving some money for when you do it, or building your personal brand, putting videos out there and getting people to know you. If you're currently a estate agent, you can make sure you're getting a good results with your clients, and they're going to recommend you, so that when you do take the plunge, you've got people who are going to come back to you to do business and stuff like that. So, it might be worth planning. Well, it's been fascinating. I'm really pleased because I just love seeing people do well, and I want people to earn good money, have a great lifestyle, and enjoy the finer things in life. We haven't touched on the financials, but, where do you see the future? Are you going to be better off financially? Do you feel that you're going to be having a better lifestyle? Have you planned for the future and how you want this to pan out? Yeah,
we all have targets. I know, and the business planning, as you just touched on, really having that plan, whether you don't do it now, whether you do it 3 or 6 months down the line, it might be that you've got a small child in nursery and you want to wait till they're at school, then that's also important to plan as well. I know roughly what I need to be doing personally to make it so I can break even. So I'm always comfortable that if I know that I can break even with what I need for my outgoings, that's again a big deal for me. So I know that I know what I need. I think when you're looking at it, your figures are very important. I like a good spreadsheet. I'm thinking, I like a good spreadsheet. And when when you look, it's easier to look at something when it's written down rather than it just being in your head all the time. I still have an old-fashioned diary, even though I love computers, but an old-fashioned diary it's there as my backup. If you know what you've got to do, you're in control of that. So yes, I'm hoping that it will only build and get better, but I also know what a bad month will look like. And in a way, it's not really a bad month because you might just be reallocating your time somewhere else to be able to do different things. So it's just a different mindset of doing things, but I definitely have personal goals.
Great. And it's not just about the money. How is it with family life, kids, lifestyle? What's changed?
A lot's changed over the last few months, quite considerably, really. I found actually that the children like to get more involved with what I'm doing because they can see that I'm probably a bit more relaxed about it. I know what timescales I'm working towards. So actually, they've got a better understanding as to what I do. Brilliant. That's really good because that's also teaching them at the same time. But it's just good to have that balance. I know where I've got to be at certain times, when I need to pick the children up, when I can work a full day, when I can't. It's all swings and roundabouts. But yeah, it's a big change, very scary, but overall it's fantastic. And overall it provides me with a little less stress that I know I've got to be at my desk for 9 a.m. or I've got to leave the house by 8:15 to get through the rush hour traffic. You just don't have that anymore. It's a lot more relaxed to that degree. And so what if I've left something at home? That's fine. I haven't got an appointment or I don't have to be anywhere or clock in and clock out. And that's really important. And I know that I can provide my clients with the service that I do, really. It makes me a lot more relaxed.
Yeah, good. And I guess your role as an estate agent now, looking after your clients, that you're able to give more time to each one, are you?
Oh, absolutely. And that's really good. Communication, I think, is a lot better. We're all on the same page. We're all looking after our own listings. You know, if someone rings you, you can just reel off what's going off straight away. You don't need to say, let me just log on or let me just grab your file, because it makes it look as though it's literally just another a file that's being sat on someone's desk. It's very personalised. I like that. Great rapport with some of my clients as well, and at the end of the day we do it for them really as well as for ourselves.
That's good. It's great to hear. I genuinely believe that being self-employed is better for the agent, it's better for the client, and I believe that it'll also raise the standards in the industry. So congratulations on taking that jump, and I'm really pleased to see you're just doing so well and life's good, and congratulations and keep up the good work.
No, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity as well.
No, it's been a pleasure. Take care.
Thank you.
So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like more information about becoming a self-employed estate agent, I will add a link in the description. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.